explain to if you had to explain to an average resident or citizen who's living in the 16-county area why this is important, what would you say to that individual about why they should care about this process and, as you say, moving forward?
Let me defer to my colleagues here who certainly, Bruce?
Yeah.
We all could answer the question, but it's inappropriate for any one of us to answer the question since we're collaborating.
Come on, my God. All three of us would probably answer that differently.
Yeah.
The reason I popped up, why I wanted to answer that question, sir, is the fact that we, I'm one of the three that's from Cuyahoga County here, the three of us, and we realize in the work we've done on this, that if you have a strong, you must have a strong core city for the suburbs to survive. Whether it's Cleveland or Akron or Canton or Youngstown, the core city will be strong. If not, the problems, I'll use the word, the cancer that affects so many of our inner cities today will grow out and eventually take on all the suburbs. The Richfields, the Hudsons, the Pepper Pikes, and all the others. What's encouraging to me is that what's come out of this study is how many of these mayors, large cities, as the Mayor Curran pointed out, and all the way down smaller towns, smaller communities, villages, have come to realize that if we don't work together, we're going to sink. We're in this boat together. And the only way we're going to resolve this thing is to take on a study to see how we can work this together, both in the planning side and in the revenue side. They go hand in hand. They can't be separate. And again, Cleveland and Cuyahoga County cannot be by itself. It has to work within this region, the Summits and the Milanas and the Portages and the Geaugas and the rest of them. And that because we are competing with, as I said earlier, the Indias, the Chinas, the Koreas, as well as other parts of the country, we have got to work together. We have got to be united and realize that by working together, by sharing in the planning and sharing in the revenues, all that that's faced with, it's the only way we're going to be able to compete with that. And going back to your question, I wanted to answer the question you raised. This phase one is just that. It is, as you will see when you get a chance to read the summary, is the whole point of phase one was to see what are the issues, what do we have to address, where do we go from here? And it's monumental, no question about it. And so we know that the phase two has got to be to go after those questions, to get the answers to the questions that came up in the study. We don't have the answers yet. We're going to get there. But what's encouraging is, as pointed out, I'm sorry, lose more mayors that way, is the fact that we had this overwhelming vote by these mayors of all these counties and all of the sizes, cities, villages, to realize we've got to move forward. We cannot afford to compete with each other. And if we can get a plan together, and we all realize that we're working together, and that we all will benefit by working together, then I think we're confident that phase two will bring us some of those answers we're looking for, and how to carry on from there. We cannot afford not to work together.
Your question was why would the average citizen care, right? There'll be a whole bunch of different ways to answer this, but one that I thought of is that I think the average person expects government leaders to act in a sensible, forward-looking manner, and there's almost universal agreement among the mayors that we've talked to, and not only mayors but county commissioners and other officials, that that it is both sensible and essential that we collaborate and work together. As we investigate this, it's even surprising to us who have been in public office how difficult and how little that collaboration takes place, and how little mechanism is in place to gather data to understand how we function as a region. So there is no mechanism, there's no process by which we can come together to collaborate, to understand how even understand what the opportunities are to collaborate and work together. That requires that we begin to do that. That is a planning process. That's a thought process. That's a process of discussing with one another these things. We do it, and someone asked about the Avon situation. Well, the Avon situation was an example of what we do now, which is a situation comes up and we react to it, and we try to define it in a rather small, narrow context. So our understanding of that situation is only in reaction to events. What we're talking about is not an attempt to react to events, but to examine, to establish a process by which we examine and understand the interrelationship of these functions that we do as government, and to make it more efficient and more effective. So for the average citizen, I think mostly they'd be disappointed if we did not function more appropriately as elected officials. Okay.
I appreciate Mayor Lyons reminding me that I got away from your end of your specific question. What I would add to what Mayor Lyons said here, we all face the fact that this area is declining in population. That obviously means inevitably a tapering off in revenues. The mayors and city managers and city council, village councils are faced with three choices. You reduce services, that's not good. You increase taxes, we can't do that. Or third, you find ways that we can collaborate, cooperate, and create better efficiencies. Now that is what John Q. and Mary Q. Public will understand. They don't want to raise taxes. They want to keep those services going and improve. And at the same time, if we can show them that we're doing that more efficiently, and we can show them we're not wasting taxpayers' dollars, but making better use of taxpayers' dollars, that they'll understand. And that's what they will like about, or come to appreciate about the study as we move along.
And that's supported by the wonderful work that the Fund for Economic Future did in supporting the Voices and Choices initiative, which was a major initiative that lasted actually more than a year and a half, I believe, almost 2 years. It was 18 months, so that's a year and a half. But over 20,000 people participated in that throughout all of northeastern Ohio. There were not only town meetings and mini meetings, but then major gatherings. And when the report, and go back to the report from that initiative, the number one concern and number one priority of those 20,000 people, again, representing all walks of life and economic status here in northeastern Ohio, was government collaboration and government efficiency. A major part of the fund's Advanced Northeastern Ohio is government efficiency and collaboration, and this is exactly what we're responding to.
How many phases are in this, and what's the timeline until it's actually in place and operating?
Well, we hope that it's 2 phases, okay? But you know, it's a process. It's a learning process as we go through this. So we've concluded phase 1 to move into phase 2, which is we're understanding the challenges now. We have lots of research data. We have lots of information about other regions, as well as regions who have collaborated more than just on an economic basis. And we're putting that information further, but there are questions that we have to have, and it's articulated in the summary. The major questions that came upon us. Our timeline, our vision for our timeline is to drill down, have the analysis, resolve the issues appropriately and equitably, develop a program, and have implementation somewhere in mid-2009. We actually have created a PERT chart, which is not available to us today, but internally we have. It calls for this to be finalized by the end of the first quarter of 2009. But in phase one, we had a timeline that said by the end of December of 2007. And here we are in May of 2008. What we're not going to do is to say we have a 2-year or 5-year timeline, because what happens with those kind of timelines, you tend to fill them. So we have an aggressive timeline, and we may have slippage. We don't want that, but that's our target.